Hey there, Libra, how you doing? So this is the Relationships and Connections forecast for you for this 2-week waxing moon phase. In this, I'm going to be focusing a little bit more deeply and intensely on the idea of romantic partnerships and intimacy, and also how you might be managing friendships and social circles, and also your family dynamics, to really sort of explore what the patterns are, what's going on, and how you might free yourself from them to, I don't know, feel a bit sexier in yourself and to feel a lot more at peace. So where should we start? So, with romantic relationships, I always pay some attention to the 5th house and the 7th house. And I also quite like to look at the 8th house as well. So the 5th house is very much about what brings us joy and what lifts us up. I always think of this as a place of co-creation. I always think of it, not a co-creation, but the source of your creation. So I think of the kind of womb space. I think it's, what are you wanting at your gut level? This is real sort of instinctive and very much about your natural authority. What is at the core of what you want to bring in this world. And so it's a really creative place. And I think of it as a place where, we can absolutely explore ourselves sexually with our partners. It's a place where we can enjoy real intense physical sensations. It is a place of bringing yourself into joy. And there's something kind of climactic about that, right? And so the ruler of your 5th would be Uranus and both Saturn, according to whether you're traditional or modern. I prefer both rulers. So I'll be looking at both of them. I'll also be looking at Mars, which is the ruler of your 7th house. Thankfully, he's just gone direct, which I think is going to be very helpful for you. But the 7th house is very much about your partners, your relationships, and how they're going. What are your attitudes? What are you projecting onto them? And how do you feel like they're projecting onto you right now? And then finally, your 8th house. The 8th house is another sort of sexy, fun house as well. Not so much fun, actually. The 8th house, I see it in a place where we have rites of passage. It's a place of real transformation. And it does have a reputation for being about other people's money and other people's values and things like that. So I think it includes all sorts of negative emotions and difficult psychological barriers, like shame, blame, guilt, anger, resentment and stuff. But it also does show where we enjoy and share things with another person. And of course, sex is something that we experience in the 8th as well. So all three of these, and this is ruled by Venus. Now, obviously Mars and Venus, boy meets girl. They are both sexual planets anyway. They are both planets I would look at in terms of relationship. Like if I was looking at your chart and your partner's chart, I would see how they all match up and integrate. But yeah, Venus and Mars are very important for you in terms of your relationship. So it's interesting that Mars has literally just gone direct, having been retrograde since December the 6th. He went direct again from the 24th of February. And then you've just literally got 5 or 6 days before Venus goes retrograde. She's going retrograde on the 2nd. So it's like, if it's not one of you, it's the other that's going through some soul searching. So let me sort of unpack this a little bit. With Mars retrograde, I think you may well have felt very stagnated in your relationships and feel like there was nothing you could do to it was almost like there was nothing that you could do with your relationships. You couldn't do anything right. And you may well have felt almost badly judged by your relationships, given that Mars is also in the 10th house. It almost feels like there was a feeling of one person being in charge and kind of judging the others. When Mars is retrograde, our external expression is quite internalized. And so anywhere where you might want to be in charge, given that he's right at the top of your chart right now, anywhere where you might have wanted to be in charge or feel like a grown up and feel like you really know what's what, would have been really squashed and quashed. And so I imagine you've had quite a few judgments about the people in your life recently, and have also probably felt quite judged. And the fact that you maybe haven't been quite on the ball in terms of how you get out and about in your career, you've maybe been a bit more internalized in your expression. You may well have found that the people around you, in particular your loved ones, may have thought that you were sort of out of your potency. So I do think you're sort of coming back into potency. And similarly, as you come back into potency, I think you'll be viewing the people in your life as being a lot more potent. Now, it's interesting that Venus, your ruling planet, and also the ruling planet of your 8th house to do with your inner psychology and how willing are you to move to the next level and transform yourself. Right now, Venus is in your 7th house, and that's usually seen as a really good sign, like thumbs up. It's a really good time to be harmonious with people and to work on your relationships and to deepen them, and to come into a greater level of trust within them. But she's about to go retrograde on the 2nd, like I mentioned, and she's heading back into the sign of Pisces. To me, it feels like there's a few more things that need clearing. She's not quite ready to have fun. It feels like there's more things that need to be managed. Maybe there's not enough time. There's too much work on. Maybe there's not enough money to be out and about, sort of gadding about together. So to me, it feels like whoever you're in a relationship with is preoccupied. And maybe you're a bit preoccupied too, so, as she's coming back here, what she's really looking for, what's Venus, what your partners are really looking for, I think, is this sense of clarity, this clear space, this sense of possibility, when in fact, it just feels like they're a little bit overburdened and a little bit overworked and not really able to see the wood for the trees. So, my biggest piece of advice, I would say, in dealing with your loved ones right now is to create space and decrease any kind of complication. So, recognize that they might have a lot on their plate right now and make things easy for them. So if you're meeting them somewhere, make it as easy as possible. Don't add in extra, extra things that could worry them, make them anxious, or so on and so forth. Just make it easy. This will clear up, and they will come back into their own power, and then both of you will be very empowered, both of you really feeling the joys of spring, really from the 13th of April, when Venus goes direct again. You'll both be feeling more powerful, both you and your partners. And so that will be a really nice kind of balance point, which I think you'll really look forward to. I think that's going to work really nicely. Now, the 5th house, like what's helping bringing on the sense of newness or the sense of freshness or innocence in terms of relationships. And, if you're single as well, this is a house to kind of encourage and tease into. So Uranus is currently and has been for a long time in this part of your chart. So to me, I imagine any connections that you've had with people that have gone kind of into the sexy fun kind of category may well have brought along a lot of psychological baggage with it. So you may well have found that you've met people that maybe have difficulty connecting and committing, that have maybe had a change of heart, that maybe are really all in and then not all in. And I think you can appreciate that with, Aquarius here as well. I think you can understand the hot, cold phenomenon. And of course, being a Libra, you're always trying to balance things. And so I do think that, one of the patterns that goes on, especially early on in your relationships, is that it just feels not so stable. Really, what I see going on here, if we take a psychological look at it, is how can you get more constant in yourself? How can you to me, it feels like the moment you see that someone in your life is not being constant with you, it brings you into a state of, oh my God, it's not going to work. This is going to happen. I'm going to be rejected. And a whole heap of different programs and self-sabotages come up. And so you may well have a listening for disaster, and you might be on the lookout for it so that then you don't have to go all in yourself. And so what I find quite useful about this particular transit is that Saturn and Uranus, which are the two rulers of this fifth house, are really nicely balanced at the moment. They're in a beautiful sextile, really beautiful sextile. And, Uranus and Saturn are both connected to the North Node right now, and also to Mercury and also to Neptune. And so to me, there is a feeling that whatever you couldn't face about commitment completely, whatever gave you cold feet or enabled you to step back yourself, it's almost like, it's hard to explain, but I'm sure you know what I mean. Sometimes they misbehave in relationships. They start playing up, almost encouraging the other person to end it so that they don't have to. I think you may well, there may be a bit of a programming in there right now. I think you're coming into a much more stable space whereby anyone that appears to be playing games, you don't have to enter into that with them. You're actually able to hold your own space, hold your own energy. And so that's my advice, really, especially if you're long-term single and would like to meet somebody and it's hard to trust. I think, the planets right now are lining up to let you know that it's safe to trust yourself. And in doing so, somebody new will come in at some point soon. So there you go. I hope that's helpful. Also, let's not forget Pluto is coming to transform the hell out of this. So, watch this space. If you like this, let me know. I'm umming and ahhing about creating like very focused like relationship and money and career forecasts for people. And if they're popular, it will be something that I do. So anyway, I hope that's helpful for you in unraveling that a little bit further and sending you loads and loads of love.